All right, thank you very, very much. My name is Razak Adekoya. If there is one thing particularly that has reformed me as a person, I think it's blindness. And if I'm going to talk, I will say, I'm proud to be blind. I am not happy living with blindness, but I am living happily with blindness. Please get that word clearly. So for us to start with, I need to clarify this, and for we being an African child, perhaps for us growing up in Africa, you remember this word. So if I say it, you return it back. Story, story, and once upon a time, good. So I'm going to tell you the story of my life before I was a blind person, and after being a blind person, what has happened to me, and how have I been able to walk around it. Please keep it at the back of your mind. I only have 3 tips to share with you on how you can brand your blindness, or how you can turn adversity to possibility. At age 17, I started as a young aspiring Nigerian, perhaps what many people might not have opportunity to do. I was a TV presenter in Lagos at age 17. When I was 19, at 18 at first, I was able to register a company for myself. But please keep it at the back of your mind, I was not born with silver spoon. When I was 19, I made my first 1 million naira as a young Nigerian, working around entertainment industry, event management, and the paparazzis of this world. When I was 20, just at 4 or 5 months after, the story turned around. All the things I started getting seems to change. At first, my mom had an accident that particular year, and she had a very, very severe fracture accident. The following year, just exactly 1 year, my dad died. Being the first child, I have to assume the role of leadership. And I have 3 siblings behind me. 1 year after, the same month, May, I started having issues with my sight. 1 year after, July, precisely, I lost the sight finally. After going to an hospital with the hope of having a surgery and changing the so-called bad situation to good, but rather it turned to worse. That particular year, I was a CEO of Sleep and Wake Nigerian Enterprise. What I mean is, I have nothing to do. I stayed in there, and I have to accept my fate. But this is it. I have to reject myself before people reject me. Before people call me blind, I actually rejected myself. I stayed in there, depressed, made an attempt to kill myself, but all didn't work. Now, the first thing I'm going to say about it is this. The time I was making things happening for myself at 17, when I was making my first 1 million at 19, I never said, why me? But when things turned around for me personally, when I lost my sight, then I started questioning God. I prayed, I did all I could, but it seems God was deaf to my words. It seems God doesn't see me, but it was a lie. I wandered around seeking for miracle as an African person, perhaps thinking there's going to be something that will happen to me, not knowing that what I was seeking for was magic and not miracle, because magic happened instantly. Miracle doesn't happen to people when they think it's going to happen. But what I was looking for was miracle in my mind, not knowing it was magic. So the first thing I'm going to keep to the back of your mind is this. Nothing innovate questions but problems. Nothing produce invention but challenges. I'm going to repeat it again. Nothing innovate questions but problem. Nothing produce innovation, but challenges. Now, after I lost the sight and I was staying indoor, doing nothing, I spent around 8-9 months, and one lucky day, a friend came to my house specifically, and he was so bothered, so curious. I don't pick people's call. And he asked me what was wrong, so I let him into the challenge. So he offered me an opportunity, saying, rather than you staying indoor, I will come to pick you. There's an audition in our radio station. Can you try to make an attempt to start something again for yourself? So I went there, I met them, but they didn't give me the job. Not that I wasn't the best, or I was not among the best, but they said I couldn't do anything for myself. You are a blind person, so what can you do alone? I can't do anything then. I said, I can use a computer system. They said, but can you type yourself as a blind? I said, no. So the lady told me and said, you know what? There are opportunities for blind persons. Perhaps ask your doctor if you pass through rehabilitation. There might be rehabilitation school in Nigeria. So I met my doctor and he referred me to a particular school called the Vocational Training Center for the Blind in Oshodi, specifically around Lagos, Nigeria. I was there for 1 year. But during my time there, I met a lady who actually she's also blind. Her boyfriend beat her with acid on the face, and as a result of that, she lost her suicide. I met a particular lady as well called Nika, who actually had a gun sight in her 2 sides by armed robbers, and she stayed indoor for 12 years. I was terrified by these stories of those people. And as a result of that, I have to keep mine aside and think, I think I need to move on. If they are happy and they have decided to move on, I need to move on. As a result of the curiosity and the things I thought in my mind and the adventure I believe I could work on, I actually went to a particular place which is a community of blind persons. It's called the TEDxAjah home around Mushi in Lagos as well, where there are 3 categories of people who live in this community. The visually impaired you call the blind, the hearing impaired you call the deaf, and the physically challenged you call the cripple. I'm not physically challenged. So please keep that. So they asked them. They were actually joking within themselves. And this was a real life story, but perhaps I think it's something we can learn from. They said, who is the best among the 3 of you? The blind said, I am better. I might not be able to see, but I have my legs, I have my hair. So the cripple said, you know what happened? I might not have leg, but I can see, so I'm better than you, the blind. And I can hear, I'm better than the deaf. And the deaf laughed. And he said, you know what happened? We, the deaf, we might not be able to hear, but we are better because we have legs, we have our height. So somebody just said something jokingly and said, let's put it up as a challenge. You stay in this community. If someone blew your whistle and said, please leave here for you to save your life, what will you do, and who will be the first person to get saved? So the blind person stood up and said, you know what happened? With my guide cane, I can tap around because I have orientation about this community in which I am, at least for me to go into my house and lock myself, at least to safeguard myself. So they asked the so-called cripple, that what will you do? How would you escape? The cripple said, you know what happened? I quite understand the fact that I might not be able to run fast at this moment. So I'm going to call the blind, ask the blind to carry me on his or her neck. I will use my eyes to see for him, while the blind person will use his or her leg to run faster. Perhaps, I think, do you get something there? That's the power of collaboration. Number 3. So they asked the deaf, what will you do? The deaf said, actually, I can't hear the whistle being blown, but I can see people running. So the next thing I'm going to do is to join them, even though I don't know where they are going or why they have decided to move. Actually internalize the word of that particular deaf person and relate it to what is going on in the society. Perhaps that has really helped me. Because if you observe what is happening in the society today, many of us want to do things because some people are doing it, or some people are making an attempt to do it, not understanding the purpose of that particular thing. So the word I'm going to use for it is this: be blind to the multitude trend, because the crown is not meant for the crowd, but for the focused one. I'm going to repeat myself. Be blind to the multitude trend, because the crown is not meant for the crowd, but for the focused one. So the right word there is focus. That's the first lesson I've learned. The first lesson I've learned as a blind person is if you are focused and you have the ability to internalize what you want to do for yourself, and you have a sense of purpose of what you want to achieve for yourself, you can, and you have the ability to do that if you don't join the multitude trend. Now, let's internalize that same story, and perhaps we will be able to understand why, if you are focused, what next do you do? Oftentimes, individuality cannot make us tall. We cannot achieve things on our own. As you listen to me right now, you might not have the sense of doing everything for yourself. Be the chef, the driver, your fashion designer, the shoemaker, the computer engineer. You might not be able to achieve those things. You could see that the crippled, the physically challenged actually said, we'll ask the blind to carry us on their neck. We'll use our eyes to see for them, while they use their leg to work for us to move faster. I think that's power of collaboration. In life today, you need to collaborate with people, but collaboration alone won't work if you don't have values to exchange. I have come to realize that if that blind person would not have any value to add, or the so-called physically challenged doesn't have any value to add to that thing, the blind person might not wait. In life today, we might not be able to do things on our own, but ability for us to leverage on the powers of others, ability for us to understand that we cannot do it alone, that will help us long way. Just keep that. Now, while I spend my time at the Vocational Training Center for the Blind, being focused, learning on trying to adjust, I have come to realize that I actually learned many things. Then I learned how to make use of computer as a blind person. What they said I should go and learn, I was able to learn it. But the major thing was, I went online because I had nothing doing. So I keep going to search for online courses, edx.org, Coursera, taking numerous courses. But at a time, one particular year, you won't believe it, I had 42 courses. So I started asking myself, what will those courses, what does it translate into? And I have come to realize that after I make an attempt to start doing something with what I know, oftentimes, what we know alone would not translate to success for us. It doesn't matter even if it is little you know, but what do we do with that thing that we know? So I always tell people, keep it at the back of your mind, that success belongs to doers and not knowers, because knowledge alone doesn't translate. When they tell you knowledge is power, it's a lie. Power is just ability. It is in the actuality that actually make knowledge power. It is in your ability to do something. So keep it at the back of your mind, that dreamers and achievers, just something differentiate both of them, and it is productivity. If you don't do something with what you know, you can't be productive. So the first word, keep it at the back of your mind, focus. The second one is do something with what you know for you to be productive. Now, the third thing in which I want you to keep at the back of your mind is that when you have the focus, you have the knowledge, you've been able to relate with people or network with people. Attitude is a skill. If you don't have the right attitude with your focus, with your knowledge, you can't do anything for yourself. So for me as a blind person, I have come to realize that blindness does not define it's not a characteristic that define me. For you, you might not have any form of disability. It might just be a mere challenges. It might be a mere difficulty. Your difficulty does not define who you are. Neither does it define your future. So click it. And I'm going to say this last set of 5 words. I've said it at first, that be focused. Do something with what you know for you to be productive. And the third one is attitude is a skill. But I want to tell you something. As you listen to me right now, as you watch me right now, keep it at the back of your mind and start talking to yourself that I am too great to be belittled by challenges. Those are the powers of words in which I told myself, and I kept to it. I am well beyond imagination. My mind could take me anywhere. You define blindness as ability not to see. I define blindness as ability not to foresee problems and give solution to them. If you can foresee problem and give solution to them, then thumbs up. If you cannot foresee problem and give solution to them, then you are the real blind person in the society. Last but not the least, in which I want you to keep at the back of your mind. You see, circumstances, it will happen. Choices, that's what you do to it. And the consequences of your choices. Those three things are very, very important. It wasn't my wish nor my desire to be blind, but my choices actually lead to those consequences. If you do this, you get this. It's a natural law of nature. You have nothing to do to it. So keep it at the back of your mind, that life might not give you what you deserve. It will only give you what you negotiate for. Is either you are productive or you are redundant. Is either you are progressive or you are stagnant. But for me, Razak, success is not an option, it's a choice. So stick to that and you will be successful. Thank you. My name is Razak Adekoya.